Uh, when you buy a guitar, always get a case. Hard shell cases are better. The main word here is hard shell. I mean, you can drop a cinder block on it and it won't break. Okay, they're very strong. Uh, Bags are better than nothing. You know, if you go buy a guitar, they'll probably throw in a bag. I got a $2,000 Steinberger here guitar, and that came in a bag. So I never bought a hard shell case for it. But now that I think about it, that was crazy. I should have bought the hard shell case. There's a brand name called SKB. Those are the best cases, but there's many good hard shell case brand names. I think if they don't include the case with the guitar, I would just go to another store, because most likely they're just trying to sell you the guitar cheap just to get you out the door. You know, my opinion, that would be like taking the doors off the car. You're just trying to sell the car a little cheaper. You know, don't sell them the doors. You know. So it should always come with a case, even if it's just a bag. You know, never walk out of the store with just a guitar in your hand. I had one student got a guitar for Christmas. He said he went from the warm house to the warm car. The guitar was in the cold air for 10 seconds, and it split the paint. I mean, that's how fast. So always get a case. I think some of the more modern guitars, they even have a humidity controller, especially for these classical guitars, the more expensive ones. Okay, so here's a hard shell case. These are the SKBs. See, if you're spending $500,000 on a guitar, you know, another 100 for a good SKB case, that's nothing. It's worth the case. You know? But remember, you can't just leave that sitting on your back seat. Thieves know, hey, that's a SKB case. There must be a nice guitar inside there. Okay. Here's one of the humidifier things for your guitar case. See, they stick this little thing inside of it. I think it runs off batteries. This is something fairly new. I'd say within the last 5-10 years or so. Diodario, that's like one of the best names in guitar strings. And now they're making these guitar humidifiers. It keeps the wood from cracking, because with a wood guitar, you never know when the wood is going to split. It's just like if you have wood furniture, wood TV stands or lamp stand or lamp tables and things like that. You go out, spend big bucks on your furniture, well, that wood can split at any time. So that's why they came out with this type of thing. When you buy a new guitar, or even if you get a used one, make sure they put new strings on it. You know, try to get them to throw it in for free as part of the deal. That might be kind of tough to do, especially if it's a used guitar. But here, I'll go ahead and read through this. When you buy a new or used guitar at the store, have them put new strings on it and set it up. A setup is they check all the measurements and things like that and make sure it's playing well. You know, strings are not too high, strings are not too low, strings aren't buzzing, and anything else it might need. You know? Usually a setup could be like close to $100. It could be $50. It just depends on what needs to be done. But a setup would be like getting an oil change and check the brakes and check all the fluids and things like that, just to make sure it's okay before you take it out of the store. Plus, they'll tune it, have them put a new nut on it. That's that thing at the top. a new bridge. If you buy a used guitar, this piece of plastic here might be old and brittle, that little white thing, and the little white thing down here might be old and brittle. So it would be better just to have them do it at the store, because you're new at it, you don't want to be messing with it. You know, new strings, new nut, new bridge, if it needs it, right? You know, it's always best to keep the original. You know, but if it's a good store, they'll be able to put in the proper parts and get the guitar playing well. You know, small stores, you might be able to get a good deal. You know, get it out the door cheap and then bring it to a bigger store and have the setup done there. It'll cost you a few bucks, but it's definitely worth it. It takes out a lot of the aggravation. You know, you're trying to play and it's just not working right. You know. Don't rush them. You know, leave it at the store for at least a few days so they can tune it. Nylon strings, when you put new nylon strings on, they take a while to stretch out and tighten up. It may take at least 3 days or a week before it starts staying in tune. So after you buy a guitar and you've been playing for a while, you know, change your strings at least once a year, twice a year if you play a lot. You don't have to change them every month. You know, if you're playing 6 hours a day, well, you might want to change them for once a month. But for the average person, once or twice a year is fine. Always have spare strings around the house. You never know when a string is going to break. These days, I just buy mine off Amazon. You can buy a pack of 3 for like $10. You know, 3 sets. You know, you can buy them by the case too. Get 10 sets in a case for like $50 or so. You can usually get them a lot cheaper. This is the brand name that Segovia recommended, but there's a lot of good brand names in guitar strings, so that's all a personal preference. You know, I've used all kind of brands, and I never really noticed that much of a difference. So, you know, thickness is a different story. You know, how thick or how thin. You know, the thicker strings are harder to play. On a classical guitar, a thicker string will give you more volume. You know? But right now, it's not that big of a deal. So. Okay, so here's a list of some of the popular guitar brand names. Gibson, Fender, Ovation, Steinberger, Epiphone, Takamine, Martin, Yamaha, Les Paul, Ibanez, Paul Reed Smith, Jackson, Taylor, Rickenbacker, Gretsch, ESP. And then here's a web page I found that listed all of the names, you know. And then here's a list of some of the better classical guitar names. If you look in the magazine, Classical Guitar, they all have ads. But some of these guitars start at $10,000. So that's why I said, with this Fender, you can't go wrong. Or with those few that I mentioned above. You know. There's some really cheap brand names out there, and I would really avoid those. So here's a picture of Segovia when he was younger. What guitar does Andres Segovia play? Andres Segovia played custom-made Ramirez. He also played a Hauser. So I'm sure over his career he probably had a few different brand names. he's one of the best. Of course, he played a $10,000 guitar. Yeah. So, a cheap beater is fine to get started on. Don't get caught up in the hype. You know, as long as it plays well. If a guitar is set up properly, remember how we talked about getting a guitar set up? If it's set up properly, even a cheap guitar can play really well. You know, it's easy to finger. It's easy to play down here. You know. The main reason people quit lessons is because the guitar is hard to finger up here. It's a bad guitar. I mean, I've seen some real nightmares. New students would come into the store and their parents or their uncle give them a guitar, a used guitar to get started on. It is just terrible to play. You can get great deals on eBay and Craigslist. You know, people buy a guitar, they decide they don't want to do it, so they sell it cheap. So you just have to be careful. But I've seen some really good deals on both them sites. We talked about this earlier. If you're going to splurge and buy an expensive one, just be careful of the knockoffs and the fakes. Sometimes vintage means old piece of junk. It may be classic, it may be worth a lot of money, but they're hard to play. You know, it's like an old car. Have you ever got in an old car? The outside is perfect. They did a great job on a new paint job and things like that. And then you get on the inside, it's all old upholstery and nasty and smells bad. You know, it's the same thing with the guitar. You know. This woman, she's on YouTube. She's got a lot of good instructional videos. She's got this one here, is how to choose a guitar. And she goes into detail about finding a buzz on the fretboard. You know, you press down a string and play it and it buzzes. So she's going into real fine detail. But it's good to know, especially if you're going to splurge, spend more than a few hundred. Okay, so when you're setting up your practice area, make sure you have good lighting. You know, I recommend the reveal bulb. You know, a 60-watt LED bulb is fine. You know, you don't want a 100-watt because that would be too bright on your eyes. You know, LEDs are cool. They don't put off no heat. The new LEDs out, they look like normal light. You know. A few years back when LEDs first came out, they kind of gave off an odd shade or an odd light. It's kind of hard to read by, but the newer ones are fine. Goodwill, you can get nice lamps for under $10 to throw it on your table next to your practice area. Walmart has all kind of nice lamps, 10, 15, $20, and even if you ask around some of your relatives, I'm sure they probably got lamps thrown in the garage, thrown in the attic. So. But I've seen some really nice lamps at Goodwill. Brass, beautiful lamps. People just don't want anymore, they get rid of. You might have to put a new wire in it. You know, just buy an extension cord, buy a new socket, and you got a beautiful brass lamp with new wiring and a new socket. Maybe I'll do a video on that so you see what I'm talking about. So. Now, you don't have to run out and do all this stuff at one time, but as you get started, these are things that I want you to try to move towards. You know? Try to get some type of table. I like these folding tables. You can get them for $35, Walmart. You know, they're light, they're easy to move around. If you don't want it up, you can fold it up, throw it in the closet. I actually have 3 of them around me here, and I got a few more down in the basement. Okay, so here's practice 30 minutes every day. Same time every day to develop a routine. It's more than a routine, it's a subconscious thing. It works on your subconscious. Do a warm-up with your fingers, just 1, 2, 3, 4. When we get into the books, I'll show you that exercise. C major scale, make sure you learn the scales. Play your pages from the book. Play slowly, practice slowly. See, if you play too fast, you make a lot of mistakes. Then you're practicing mistakes. You don't practice mistakes. We're after a finger memory thing. If you play too fast, your finger's always making a mistake. So you don't want to practice mistakes. You can take that into any part of life. Hitting the golf club, doing the putter. You always put the ball in the hole. Don't practice mistakes. Playing basketball. I've watched people practice basketball. 9 out of 10 times they're missing the hoop. 1 out of 10 times they might make it. They're practicing mistakes. Ignore all the crazy finger exercises that you see in the videos all over the internet. You don't need that stuff. It's cool to fool around with, but you don't need it. Just wear it out your fingers. When you play the guitar, the hand that plays down by the hole, you should grow out your nails just a little bit. And I did a whole video on how you should grow your nails. Just a little bit, so the nails hit the string. Just these 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky can be cut short, and this hand, the fretboard hand, needs to be short. So when you press down the string, you can fret the note. After you learn to play, you can grow them out a little bit, but it just makes it harder to play. You have to fight around your nails. So go to Walmart, get a good nail clipper and file. Stainless steel so it doesn't rust. Emery board. That's I'm sure you know what an emery board is, right? These things here, these are nice to have. You can get a pack of those for $1. And then this emery cloth, you can buy this on Amazon. It's kind of hard to find. I have links down below. You don't need it, but it's nice to have. Like I said, I have a whole video on that. Don't do any of the stretching out your fingers exercises. I've seen some real crazy stuff on YouTube where they're stretching out your fingers in all kind of ways. You don't need that. You're just doing damage to your muscles. And this knee rest holder, that actually looks pretty cool. That must be something new. That woman we looked at earlier, Tatiana, she uses one of those in a lot of her videos, and it looks pretty cool. I've never tried one, but if you have a hard time holding the guitar in place, you might want to think of something like that. And then here's the same type of thing. It's just a little cushion. Here's a picture of that emery cloth paper. This stuff here. It's not really necessary. You can do it with a emery board. But if you really get into this stuff down the road, there's this, it's called emery cloth. And you want the real fine stuff. So that would be the 320 grit. And then you just kind of work it so it's softer. and then you can use it to sand your fingernails. You know. I think there might even be a finer one, like you buy it at like a jewelry store. It's almost like paper, but I think this 320 grit, that's fine. Yeah. Does the job.